Headline first, because this one writes itself. A single Ukrainian F-16 pilot knocked 6 Russian cruise missiles out of the sky during one mission, using only 4 air-to-air missiles and the jet's 20mm cannon. United 24 broke the exclusive interview that let us hear the story from the pilot himself. Now, if you think that headline sounds cinematic, you're not wrong. If you think it sounds impossible, well, sit tight. This is the kind of mission that rewrites what we thought F-16s could do over Ukraine. Hey friends, Wes O'Donnell here, multi-branch veteran, law grad, and very quickly growing the best community here on YouTube, you. And I hope you feel the need for speed, because it's amazing that we're just hearing about this now. But on the morning of December 13th, 2024, that day opened with a very ugly forecast. Nearly 200 strike drones, 94 cruise missiles, and a whole bunch of ballistic missiles were inbound. That scale alone matters because defensive systems breathe differently when they face massed, layered attacks. Air defenses can be overloaded, radars can be saturated, and command networks get stressed. The pilot I'm about to talk about, a 30-year-old known in the interview only as A, was airborne to do one job: intercept those incoming threats. But he did more than his job. He rewrote part of the playbook. A says he was the first one airborne that day. 2 colleagues were still starting their jets on the ground. Now, ground control gave him a kill box, an area carved out of the sky where interceptors are allowed to engage hostile targets. He climbed, he switched on the F-16's radar, and he found multiple cruise missiles on the scope. They were flying around 400 knots, roughly 740 kilometers per hour, which is fast enough to make reaction time a precious commodity. He was vectored into position and fired 4 air-to-air missiles, most likely AIM-9 Sidewinders, scoring 4 hits. Now that alone would have been headline material, but the story didn't stop there. After returning back to his station with no air-to-air missiles left, A could have come home and filed a report. Instead, he stayed on station to burn off some fuel before heading back. Ground control then radioed and told him 2 more cruise missiles were inbound from the south, headed for Kyiv. Now, he was out of missiles, but he wasn't helpless. The F-16 carries the M61 Vulcan, a 20mm Gatling gun with about 510 rounds and typical loadouts. It is designed for dogfights against other aircraft, not necessarily shooting cruise missiles out of the sky. But training matters, and training pays. A had practiced using the gun when he was in the US for his F-16 training. Now, a gunshot requires getting very close, on the order of hundreds of meters or closer, to have a reasonable chance of hitting a small, fast target. That matters because cruise missiles present a very small cross-section at that range, and because fragments from a detonated missile can hit the attacking jet. So the risk calculus here is brutal, and it's simple, and it's sharp. Regardless, he closed on the missile, came up behind it, and triggered the Vulcan in a long, controlled burst. He watched the explosion, and then a fraction of a second later, he watched a second explosion nearly identical to the first. 2 Russian cruise missiles had been flying in tandem next to each other. At that moment, he had shot down 6 cruise missiles total on one sortie, 4 with missiles and 2 with the gun, all while operating inside of a massed strike environment. That combination of precision and nerve and training is rare in any air force. Dang, Russia, you just got punked. Ukrainian Viper pilots don't give a So this mission shows 3 things. 1, the F-16 in Ukrainian hands is a real counter to cruise missile saturation when it's paired with robust ground control interception. 2, training and doctrine matters as much as hardware. He said that he and his colleagues had discussed using the gun against cruise missiles once they returned from the US courses, and that practice made the difference when it counted. 3, Western systems like F-16s and Patriots, NASAMs, and Iris Teeth are crucial, but their value rises dramatically when crews have learned the tactics and they are connected to ground control and a layered defense. But tactics do not exist in a vacuum, and there are trade-offs. Using the gun at 500 meters puts the jet inside the debris field of a detonated missile, so the pilot risked structural damage and personal safety to get those last 2 kills. To him, though, that risk was acceptable because the missiles threatened Kyiv directly. A dedicated the mission to a fallen comrade, Oleski, callsign Moonfish, who we've talked about on this channel before, who had been killed while engaging cruise missiles months earlier. Combat forms lines of memory, and pilots carry those lines in their helmets. A told United 24 he flew that day for his friends, his country, and especially for Moonfish. He also described the post-strike moment with the same mixture of relief and disbelief most warriors carry after a close call. He landed, he told his crew the count, and then during debrief, he realized he had actually hit 2 targets with 1 burst from the cannon. It was one of those rare, perfect instances where practice met fate and won. Now, this mission was not solo heroism. Ground-controlled intercept, or GCI, provided the vectoring that allowed him to meet missiles at the right geometry. Modern air defense is more orchestra than soloist, and the conductor matters. An AWACS or an AEW platform, other fighter radars, ground radars, and missile batteries worked as a system to create a window where interceptors could engage. The F-16 cannot do effective long-range interceptions by itself very effectively. The network is essential. The pilot was the instrument that converted the network's conductor cues into kinetic effect. But networks have vulnerabilities too, and GCI has limits. So the pilot's decision to stay on station was a tactical improvisation that turned a capacity gap into a tactical advantage. He did not go back and land to rearm with missiles. He used what he had, and he improvised when the rack went empty. A repeatedly credited Western hardware and Western training with making this mission possible. The F-16 platform gives him speed, avionics, and a gun that can be used in last-ditch inventiveness. Western doctrine taught him to think in integrated defense modules, as in sensors, shooters, and command all knit together. Without those systems, and without the training to use them fluidly, this would have been a much harder fight. Ukraine's acquisition of Western fighters is really about shifting the margin of lethality and survivability. But Western systems alone do not guarantee success, so continuous supply, spare parts, missile stocks, and training pipelines are crucial. Today's success will be tomorrow's maintenance headache if partners do not keep supplying missiles and pumps and training hours. 6 missiles down in 1 sortie sends a signal far beyond the immediate tactical win. It tells Moscow that cruise missile saturation is not a free ticket anymore. It tells allies that investments in training and integration pay immediate dividends. And it tells potential adversaries that systems are getting smarter at handing back costs. The mission shapes behavior, not only outcomes. This story is about the combined effect of training, command integration, and the right kit at the right time, which turned a desperate defense into a historic interception. United 24's exclusive interview gave us an inside look at how that chain snapped into place and why every part of that chain matters. If there's a moral in this mission, it's simple. Technology opens the door, training walks through it, and bravery makes all the difference. A did what pilots do when the chips are down, and he did it with a calm that only comes from rehearsal and resolve. He ended his interview reminding viewers that Ukraine is a peaceful nation that will feed a guest with bread, but will fight with a sword if the guest arrives with hostile intent. That is both an old proverb and a modern war principle. If you want to support reporting like the United 24 exclusive, read, share, and help the facts cut through the noise. And if you're wondering what this means for the next phase of the air war, well, here's a short answer. Expect more integrated defenses, expect more pilots trained in Western tactics, expect Moscow to try to adapt its playbook. None of that changes the human fact, though, which is that one pilot on one morning did more than defend airspace. He gave people time, and he gave a nation a moment of breathing room when it needed it most. That's it for today, my friends. Subscribing really is the best free way to support these videos. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.